Hello, hello, hello. It is me, your True Heel Phenom SP3, back once again with an exclusive interview. Tru Heels BTR Between the Ropes. This time we are with Impact Wrestling star Steve Maclin. Steve, huge week ahead of you. Impact Rebellion this Sunday. You're going for the Impact World Championship. How are you doing? So close to this big show.
I'm excited. To say I'm anxious would be a lie, or say that I'm not anxious would be a lie. I'm very anxious for this match. Very excited for the Toronto crowd as well, and it's a long time coming to be in the main event for the world title.
It's something that you've been working so hard towards, and everyone that is an Impact Wrestling fan has kind of watched your journey coming in just a few years ago, just 2 years ago, and how you've climbed your way to the top of Impact Wrestling. You have this huge matchup to determine a new Impact World Champion against Kushida. How are you preparing for someone who is, so versatile that can do any type of wrestling, who's been, a junior heavyweight stalwart for New Japan Pro Wrestling and has had a bunch of success in Impact Wrestling so far?
I would say it would be the same on his end. How is he preparing for me? I'm very adaptable to what I can do. Obviously, for the past 2 years, I've been making my name here in Impact Wrestling through the X division and also in the heavyweight division. So I'm pretty adaptable on my end as well. This is a time for me to shine on my end, but also I know what I'm getting into with Kushida. He's one of the best tactical wrestlers on the mat itself, and then he also is a great high flyer too. So those are things I'm not taking lightly for what he can do, especially with the hoverboard lock as well. What he obviously did to Josh at Battle in the Valley that couldn't allow them to wrestle at Multiverse. And that's also another thing people don't realize too is it could have been me and Kushida all along at Rebellion.
Sure.
So a lot of people forget that. But do I wish it was against the longest reigning Impact World Champion in history in his hometown of Toronto? Yes, because I planned to beat him then. But I also do as well. The mission stays the same, but the opponent changed. Become the Impact World Champion. I'm going to do that at Rebellion.
I gotta ask, like, how has your mind state kind of changed? Because you've been really hunting down Josh Alexander for the better part of 8 months. We saw the footage that you presented during your last encounter with Josh before his injury, where you showed that you've been scouting him for so long. How has the mindset changed now that you're not going after the guy who's the longest reigning Impact World Champion, and now you're versing someone who has already shown that they can also kind of tap you out as well after the matchup at Sacrifice?
Well, at Sacrifice, like I said last Thursday, I tapped out on my own accord. That match had nothing in it for me. Why waste my body, my arm, my triceps? Like Josh was too prideful to tap out at Battle of the Valley, or even just try to fight out of it. But it also showed a mean streak side of Kushida as well. He didn't let go, so I know I have to deal with that. But I'm prepared, and it's just one of those things where if you're again, mission stays the same. Become the Impact World Champion. That's where my head's at, really. It's just to become the Impact World Champion in one of the biggest moments of my career at Rebellion. And that's the one good thing, too, is Impact has entrusted in me of putting me in this position where I earned this opportunity, and I've taken the ball that they've given me and ran with it.
And you really have, and especially, you've been here for 2 years, but the last year has really been probably the greatest of your whole career. Last year at Rebellion with your big win over Chris Sabin and Switchblade Jay White, and now coming full circle to this year's Rebellion, you're now in the main event. How do you reflect on the past year and the ups and downs and your journey to get to this spot?
Well, I know for one thing, Scott D'Amore doesn't want me as the world champion. That he made that clearly last Thursday. He would love to not see me win, which I know he's supposed to be unbiased and impartial, but obviously not. But going from last year's Rebellion to beating Jay White and Chris Sabin on the same night is a big feat on its own, and that's kind of what's got me in the right direction to get to this point as well. I beat every former world champion on my way to this path. I made that soundly clear every week after week that I keep beating all these people. When is it going to be my time? When am I going to get my shot? And then I finally got the chance to be the number one contender. I called Josh out for his hometown. And obviously that's not happening, but it is Kushida and I, and I'm just very excited that the hard work does pay off in this world that we live in.
Yes, and I don't want to offend you at all here, but I know you just mentioned Scott D'Amore doesn't want to see you as Impact World Champion, and maybe he got caught up in the moment because it was a touching moment that you were a part of on Impact on Access TV with Josh, giving up the championship, his son kind of taking the belt, not wanting him to give it up, and you were on your way to say something about Josh's son before Scott and Josh kind of interrupted you. If you want to finish what you were about to say, or do you want to address you kind of being the damper on what felt like a special moment there?
I'll leave that as a cliffhanger and leave it up to imagination for fans. So you imagine what I was gonna say. But yeah, of course, Scott's got to be involved in everything. He always tries to stick his nose in everything and be involved. And I know Josh, Jet, and Jen are very close to him personally, outside of the wrestling business and in the wrestling business. But it's one of those things where now you have a clash of the boss against somebody that's technically rebelling against the company itself, and that is me at Rebellion. If I do walk out there as the Impact World Champion, which I do plan to do.
And I think a lot of people anticipate you being a favorite for this matchup because of how much you have been through in the past 2 years. And you talk about how Impact has given you the ball. You also talk about kind of your dissension or your differences with Scott D'Amore. But how would you describe kind of the difference in the Impact Wrestling locker room in comparison to your previous, 7 years that you were with, more than 7 years with WWE and going through the ranks of working in NXT, under a Triple H. Dusty Rhodes was there at the time when you got started, and then into the main roster of WWE working under Vince McMahon. How would it compare, working with Scott D'Amore and Impact Wrestling to your previous much of your career in WWE?
For the locker room side of it, nothing's really changed. The boys always take care of the boys, and we police each other on our own. But we always, any locker room I've been on or been in, I should say, to correct myself, has just been hardworking. Everybody wants to have their moment and their opportunity, and that's the one thing we all thrive for, is an opportunity to show who we are and our capabilities in the ring. Is that the one thing that Impact Wrestling has given me more than WWE has? Yes, just because the experience that I was and the lessons that I learned with my time in WWE under the tutelage, like you said, of Dusty Rhodes, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Norman Smiley, Robbie Brookside, William Regal. Just I can keep going down the list. Steve Carino and Scott Garland, Scotty Tuhati. There's just so many people that have helped me along the way that I've learned so long, and that's one thing I take away too from my time in WWE. Is I got to learn so much that I got to bring with me to Impact to then now add to the matches and help the locker room. Hey, this worked for me here like this. This does, like, just understanding how WWE TV was to now bring to Impact. Most people in Impact usually come from the independents and they're not used to working TV wrestling. So I come from a company where I work TV wrestling and now I'm working TV wrestling again. So it's a good yin and yang, and it's a good collaboration between the locker room for all of us to learn from each other, because there's so many talents within the Impact locker room as well. Like Chris Sabin celebrated his 20th year this past week with Impact Wrestling. And it's just like you have that experience in a locker room, and that's someone I gravitate to for advice, or for putting a match together. I go to him for some advice on that. And it's just a good, tight-knit group right now, especially just how we have that underdog feeling of we want to be the best company. And that's how we're treated as that underdog company. That's why they've been around for so long. And everybody busts their ass from top to bottom.
And you've been busting your ass. Like, you're really kind of an inspiration for what you've been able to accomplish in the past 2 years, not letting a setback like leaving WWE kind of stop you. How do you kind of talk to other people who might feel like, leaving a big promotion like that is kind of the end? You made it as a kind of a catapult into something bigger here.
It just motivated me even more. I was told the creative differences were that creative had nothing for me. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go create something for myself to make you want me, whether I was to go back or not. But now it's Impact Wrestling has given me the opportunity with the team that they have on the opposite side of the camera for creative. And it's just a good mold of just working together and throwing ideas. And I just love that I get to create who I am and how I envision myself. And for anybody that is out there that is trying to create, just keep working match after match and honing in your craft. Try something new, at least one thing new every match. but also know like you have to work on your character, but it can be whatever you want it to be, whatever your personality, if it's dialed up, or you see a character in a comic book. And I like to steal from comics and I like to steal from movies. It's where I get my ideas. And it's just invest in yourself and be all in on it and just have the balls to be able to stand your ground and know who you are. And that's pretty much all I try to do is just stay true to who I am. And anytime you see that camera on, and even behind the scenes, I try not to be a kiss ass. I try not to politic my way to get what I want. I know sometimes you have to kind of schmooze a little bit to get your way, especially throwing ideas around or pitches, and you finally have to get it that way. But I just try to stay true to me and work hard.
And the hard work is really showing off. What made you kind of gravitate to the professional wrestling business? This is a question I always like to ask, because someone like you who has your military background that you really have put up in the forefront throughout your entire career. But what made you come into the wrestling business and kind of take it head on the way you have?
As I was getting actually during my time in the Marine Corps, I had a few buddies that run independence, and they kind of got the idea in my head. And I sat down with Fred Rosser. He was at one of the bars when I was home on leave, hanging out with a few of my buddies that were in the Indies, and like, hey, you want to meet a guy from WWE? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, because they knew I loved wrestling. I grew up a pro wrestling fan. Like I grew up watching Roddy Piper, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Brett, Stone Cold. Like my grandparents got me into it, and that's just something I loved and held on to. And it's just funny how things work out. Like I got out of the Marine Corps and I was, all right, I'm going to go to college. And my buddy Jarrett was just like, come try it. Like get in the ring one night. I was like, dude, there's no way I can make a career out of this. Cause anytime I do something, I'm all in on it and I give every bit to it. So it's like, there's no way I can make it to WWE. I was like, I'm not 6'5", 300 pounds, jacked out of my mind. I'm not a Stone Cold or Undertaker kind of character. So it's one of those things where like, I tried it. I fell in love with it. And then I was like, holy shit, I can do this. And it's something that I just grit my teeth into and just sunk every bit of it into. And even my dad, when he came to one of my first independent matches, the Monster Factory in Pearlsboro, New Jersey, my dad just goes, this is what you want to do? I was like, yes. And he goes, I can tell. He's like, give it all you have. And I've never looked back since, just because I don't know. I love to be a child. I'm a grown child that fights in his underwear. So it's one of the best things in the world, because that's all I did as a kid. I always wanted to just be a pro wrestler. I would be walking to school with my Walkman on and WWE Volume 3 or 4 and the CD player, and I'm like acting an entrance out as I'm turning the corner into the playground to get to the door to go into school like a nerd. So it's just one of those things that I take a lot of pride in enjoying what we do as a business.
You hit me right in the heartstrings. Volume 3 and 4, those are my favorite. Those are
But
top notch right there.
my number one walking into school was listening to X-Pac's theme. I thought he had the best DX theme. I was always into that. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
He did have the best. He did have the best DX theme in my opinion. That
Yeah.
and the Run DMC. Those are my two favorite
That
themes.
was another good one too. That was also a really good album in general, the
Yeah.
collaboration. And so
Good stuff right there. So you've kind of faced like a who's who from Impact Wrestling, but also Impact Wrestling has their association with a couple of other promotions. You have mixed it up with some of the top guys in New Japan Pro Wrestling as well. Like you have Kushida coming up at Rebellion. You've been in the ring with Tomohiro Ishii. You have a win over Switchblade Jay White. Is there anyone in New Japan Pro Wrestling right now that you would like to lock horns with and step into the ring with?
Kenta, I'm gonna cut you off. Kenta was the number one person I was calling out for Multiverse. I wanted that match. He's somebody that I've wanted to get in the ring with for a very long time, and he's somebody I respect a lot too in this business. And that's the one person from New Japan. And that's also the one good thing about this match with me and Kushida as well. It's got the eyes of New Japan on me. So it brings in a new set of eyes to see who I am. And I have a lot to prove on that end, just because I respect that style of pro wrestling. And it's also a goal of mine is to get over to Japan at some point, whenever that may be. Or if there's going to be a show at some point between Impact Wrestling and New Japan, which I would not see not happening. It's got to happen because it's a good working relationship between both of the companies. So maybe with Kenta, yes, I would love another rematch with Ishii. That'd be another one. Suzuki would be up there. There's just so many talents out. Yeah. Rebellion, I get more eyes on me, which I'm very happy that I get that opportunity. And again, Impact giving me another opportunity that I'm going to take the ball with and run.
And holding the Impact World Championship is definitely going to attract someone like Minoru Suzuki or a Kenta, who is the strong openweight champion right now. But someone else who is very close to you is going after gold coming up at Rebellion. Deonna Purrazzo, your wife. Congratulations, on the marriage that just happened a couple of months ago. How is it kind of working so close with your significant other in professional wrestling and at such a high profile position for both of you, kind of at the top of each of your divisions?
It's awesome. I get to travel the world with my wife, and we get to wrestle and be children that never grow up, but also then have to be adults when we come home. But it's awesome just because she's been on the top of her game and on the top of the knockouts division, which is hands down one of the best women's division in pro wrestling. And those girls kick ass every time. Well, I should say girls or women, I should say. They go out there and kick ass I don't know what the politically correct would be there, but they just, every time they're out there, they're just improving that division over and over again. And she's been doing that from the day she's gotten there, where she's made the name for herself and carried that. So she's also another person I go to advice on that, because here I am about to be the Impact World Champion on Sunday by beating Kushida at Rebellion. And it's just like, okay, how did you interact with this? Or how did you feel when this happened, and getting that pressure on your back for carrying a division, or having that held over you of like, oh, you're the flag bearer right now. Like, what are you going to do? So it's just one of those things that I just enjoy to just be able to enjoy these experiences. And I hope I get the chance to sit and watch her match, whether it's the triple threat against Mickey and Jordan or just her and Jordan. Yeah, this is cool. It's a cool moment. It could be a cool night at the end of the night for us to both be standing there with both world titles.
And was there any pressure kind of coming in the time that you did to Impact Wrestling? Because by that time, she was already the ace and the anchor of the Knockouts division when you're coming into Impact Wrestling. Was there any type of, pressure? And I know with my missus, we always like to poke fun at each other. Was it like, oh, you got to get up to my spot? Like, was there anything like that going on at home?
No, she knows. She knows how I am. Once I'm all in and my mind is set on something, and that's what I'm determined to get, that's what I'm going to do. And the more pressure was more on my side, just because when I did debut, it was with no crowd, which was very weird to me to do out in Nashville. And here I am debuting a new character and a new persona of showing the world who I am, but there's nobody to feed off of. And it's a very different body of work, because the fans mean so much in pro wrestling, and that's the body that we have to feed off of and work with. So it was a lot more pressure on that end for me. But then once fans came back, and the lifeblood of pro wrestling is the fans, it was just, the ball started rolling downhill there. So that was the one good thing.
And you kind of have like a widespread of experience, being in front of, large crowds. And then you also were, in the thick of things in the pandemic, being in WWE. You were in the Performance Center era, you were in the Thunderdome era, and then coming into Impact, coming into kind of the Nashville area and the empty arenas. Like, how different was each of those? Of course, it's much different than being in front of an actual crowd with fans, but how different was each of those, kind of being in the Performance Center compared to the Thunderdome, compared to coming to Impact Wrestling during the empty arena era?
The difference would have been just kind of in like the Thunderdome era of WWE was like you heard commentary while you're out there. So you're able to kind of hear what's going on, and they're interacting with you, and you can kind of pace off of that a little bit, doing with whatever you're in the ring doing. But Impact didn't have the live commentary going. It was done in post. So it was one of those hard things where like you're just out there with a camera on you, and it's you two wrestlers in the center of the ring, and it just feels really weird. Coming out on your entrance, there's no energy to feel off of. You have to just embody that. And that's, again, going back into being that little kid walking into school and just getting that mind and creativity, and it opened up the imagination a little bit and allowed us to be more creative as well as professionals, and allowed my mind to kind of open up like, oh, okay, how could I do this since there's no interaction here? How do I buy time here without wasting a movement here? So it's like, it's just, you figure it out on the fly. And it's one of those things where it was in a time period where nobody's been involved with before. So it was just something different.
And I think that you've kind of done, a great job of in every aspect, from the pandemic to now in Impact Wrestling. It's going to be a huge crowd, nearly sold out. It's going to be sold out by the time Sunday comes in Toronto. So I want to, wish you luck, even though I don't think you need it. I think I'm talking to the next Impact World Champion. But Steve, please let the people know where they can follow you on social media, how they can order Impact Rebellion this coming Sunday, and anything else that you want to plug.
You can follow me at Steve Maclin on Twitter and Instagram, my pro wrestling tees store, Steve Maclin, as well as Shop Impact Deals, Steve Maclin. To watch Rebellion, to watch me win the Impact World title by beating Kushida in Toronto on April 16th, live this Sunday on Fight. That is how you can watch live on the Fight Network. You just download the app, or you can download it on your television screen. You a couple clicks away, just like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime, whatever it may be. Just get on there with Fight TV to watch Rebellion. And like I've been doing the past 2 years since I've stepped foot in the door, it's going to be Tag 'em, Bag 'em, and Mayhem for All.
Can't wait to see it. I know I'm talking to the next Impact World Champion, Steve Maclin. Thank you, everyone who's watching this video. Remember to drop the thumbs up on the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you are new to the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel. This has been Tru Heels BTR, Between the Ropes with Steve Maclin. It is me, your Tru Heel Phenom SP3, and we're out.